Hi. So I'd just like to start by asking everyone to imagine themselves at a party with their friends and colleagues, having a really nice social time, but then you look down and you realise you're completely naked. Now I know that a lot of you will have had this in a dream, and I've had this as a dream myself, and it is terrifying. You feel completely exposed as an outsider in a completely, seemingly inescapable situation. However, I want to tell you today that what I learned on my year abroad in Japan last year was that actually trying to embrace being an exposed outsider can be a really rewarding and beneficial learning experience. So to start off with, as an outsider, you can have experiences that appear really different and exciting. So for me in Japan, this was going to public baths with other people. For example, going to a hot sand bath with my family, which is a pretty strange experience. And also going to things like cat cafes and owl cafes, doing karaoke all the time and watching sumo wrestling. I even found myself acting in a TV commercial in Japan just because I looked like an outsider, I looked foreign. So I got to do really crazy things that I never thought I'd be able to do. The other benefit of being an outsider is that when you're outside of your comfort zone, you can learn really quickly. So I did a Horizon year abroad, which meant that I was learning about the language and culture of the country instead of my usual subject. So I really took this on board because I wanted to become more comfortable in what felt like a really alien environment. However, there is a lot to learn about Japan. For example, there's 3 alphabets and different forms of the language depending on how formal you want to be. There's also layers of social norms and unseen rules, such as having to wear slippers indoors in public places, or having to wait at the traffic lights even when there's absolutely no cars coming, which can be quite frustrating. There's also, Japan is at the top of technological advancements, so there were toilets there which had functions you don't even know that you need, and robots dancing about in crazy game arcades throughout the cities, which was pretty crazy. I also learnt about the huge emotional impact that history can have on a culture. So, for example, I had the great privilege of hearing from one of the last remaining Hiroshima bomb survivors, which was a really poignant and amazing experience. Another benefit of being an outsider is the social benefits. So for me, I found that I could bond with my outsider group. So I made lifelong friends with international students who were literally from all around the world, which I really appreciated. You can also really build on your communication skills. So for me, I learned how to sort of interact with people despite there being quite a big language barrier. I did this by talking to my karate society, but also with visits to my Japanese host families, with conversations to my Japanese language partner, my lovely student tutor here. And it was really rewarding because everyone did actually want to help me build in this skill of learning how to communicate without many words. The final benefit that I want to mention is that you can really gain perspective as an outsider by looking at the group that you're in, but also by looking at the group that you're originally from. So I found I had really widened cultural awareness by looking at Japan from an outsider's point of view. For example, I found it as very logical and ordered. So if it was raining, there'd be a place to dry your umbrella and then lock it up so you wouldn't get the floor wet, but then you could also take it outside when you were going back outside. And they also had a really big thing about showing respect in Japan. And I learnt this by having to bow to the shopping assistant when they were serving me. And also things like when I was at the cinema, everyone was watching the credits at the end of the film, and I was sitting there like, what is going on? But when I returned to England, however, I could see how an outsider might think of it as a much more random country. Everyone sort of does what they want still, even though there is a particular set of social rules. I was also really struck by how Britain loves greasy food and just really good tasting food, which contrasted quite a lot with the aesthetically pleasing nature of food in Japan, such as beautifully made sushi. And finally, I was also really appreciative of British natural scenery. Despite seeing a vast range and diverse, stunning, beautiful scenery in Japan, I really appreciated British scenery, and it really sells itself for outdoor activities. So next time you find yourself terrified at the prospect of being an outsider, or for that matter, naked in a dream, I would like suggest just trying to embrace it a bit more like David here and just seeing where it gets you, because it could be an amazing experience. Thank you very much.